Hi, everybody. Welcome to Radio Labyrinth. This is season 6, episode 5, right? Yeah, episode 5. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm losing track because now we're doing 2 a week, so it kind of, I don't know. What number is it? So kicking it off, I had a rough Monday. Actually, the Super Bowl is set now. Super Bowl, whatever number, the X and the L's and all the Roman numerals. I don't even know which one this is, but I do know who is in it. And it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady, everybody's favorite grandpa quarterback, even though he looks no different than he did when he was a rookie. And then you also have the Kansas City Chiefs, who defeated and kind of roughed up the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. But what are we going to do? Buffalo Bills fans, we went the whole long period of time without being in the playoffs. And, you get to the AFC Championship game, you think, they're going to win. They're not going to win. Because you go up against a really, really good coach and a really, really good quarterback. And then, if you shut down.
At home, too.
Huh? Yeah, they were at home, too.
At home.
Yeah. But, the first half of the game, I stuck with it. But after halftime, once the third quarter started, I'm like, this is done. I'm going to be a typical Buffalo Bills fan and do something else.
The Bills played a hell of a game, and they kept it close. But
at first, yeah.
No, the whole game, they kept it close.
It was 35-22, wasn't it? That's not very close. Close enough. And there's always next year. So it was a bum. But I don't know. Who you guys rooting for in the Super Bowl?
Nah, Chiefs, I guess.
Chiefs? How about you?
I'd probably go for Packers.
They're not in this, silly man.
Then I'm going to go for the Packers.
Okay. Well,
all the way.
You and Aaron Rodgers can sit on a couch and watch the game. I felt bad for Aaron Rodgers because they could have, as good as he is and as good as that team is, they were at the end zone, 4th down. They could have gone for it, but they didn't. They kicked the field goal, and then you lose. You don't do that against Tom Brady. So that's some bad coaching. But, whatever. This isn't the football podcast. I sound like Eric Von Hessler. This isn't a sports show. So it was a good weekend, a good Sunday afternoon of football. And I'm sure we'll talk about all the great commercials we're going to see. There probably won't be very many. Anyway, moving on.
Budweiser pulled out. They're not doing any commercials this year.
Yeah, so did Coke. Yeah,
why
Coca-Cola pulled out too.
Why? Budweiser's donating the money to COVID relief.
Oh, that's cool. What's Coca-Cola?
I think they're doing the same thing. I think they started a trend with these. Just the money going into it just seemed, a little bad taste. So
it'll just be a ton of PSAs then. Yay! Mm-hmm. The NFL. Well, whatever.
The more you know.
The more you know.
How long has it been since Budweiser hasn't had a commercial in the Super Bowl? Forever.
Our entire lives.
Yeah.
When did the Super Bowl start? I mean, it's older
50,
than us. So
56. Yeah.
50 years ago.
Yeah, it's way older than us. I think it started in 67 or 68. So they're 60. I don't know. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. I have a computer here. I could look it up, but I don't feel like it. Normally we do news and stuff and who died in our second show of the week, or that will be the way we're doing it going forward. But tonight we have very special guests lined up to talk to, and you'll hear it when you download the show. We have Allen and Donna Stare, who both host the WKRP-Cast podcast, and it's a unique way of doing a television show podcast. They just do one episode a week, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
And
it's a rewatch podcast.
Yeah, rewatch podcast, and but you said that something about the podcast that isn't like a lot of these other ones. They're focusing on something not necessarily trivial. Tell me about it. You told me about it earlier. What is their focus with this podcast?
Well, they talk about the episode the way it originally aired.
Okay.
And they also break down how you'll see it, whether you're watching it on streaming, which is it's available on CBS All Access, or if you watch it on the Shout Factory DVDs, which is what I have.
Yeah.
Which have a lot of they have 85% of the original music and stuff from the show.
Yeah.
But only 85%. So
what
they
about,
talk about because they couldn't license some of the music for the DVDs.
Yeah. Okay. And they explained that in the first episode how they were able to get it in the first place.
Yeah, and they talk about what music you would have heard if you're watching the original airing of the episode.
Yeah.
And they talk about what's music's been substituted, like these sound-alike bands, music that they just kind of threw in there.
No, there's one episode. Go ahead.
It's done really well the way they do it, and they have the Herb Tarlick fashion alert.
Nice.
Wherever Herb enters wearing a different outfit, they break down his outfit, and they have the Les Nessman bandage report.
Well, good. So if
he always has different bandages somewhere on his body. If
you're into WKRP and you've never listened to a podcast about it, I would start with this one because they know what they're talking about. And then, again, in the first episode, they really get into where the show came from, who inspired it, the guy who created it. And if you're in Atlanta and you grew up here, Quixie, which was 790, which became Star 94 in the FM dial. I mean, a lot of people who were disc jockeys back then became big stars in the city in and of itself. But some of the people on the TV show were inspired by local people. We can get into that in the podcast. And if you don't know,
did you ever meet any of them?
Yeah, I mean, the guy who inspired Herb Tarlick, his name is Clark Brown. And when I worked for this company called IQ Television Group, which was in Sandy Springs, I worked there in the late 90s. We did TV commercials for radio stations, and Star 94 was one of their biggest clients. So I got to meet a lot of those people, including Clark Brown. Now, he didn't dress like that anymore because he's kind of got a lot of money, and he dressed like a normal rich guy. But he was the inspiration. He wore a lot of he called it the groovy clothes, like mod stuff. So, and we can get into that. 790 today is Radio Korea. So things have changed in the last 50 years or so. For a long time, though, it was 790 The Zone, if you're familiar with that. Their morning show for a time being was Don Imus and Steak Shapiro, and a lot of those guys that went to 680 were originally on 790. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, good radio station. Star 94 used to be owned by Jefferson Pilot. I don't know if they owned it back in the 60s and 70s, but we can talk about that more with them.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys talk about, because it's always fun when two radio guys get together that have stories behind the scenes and all that.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, and he is a radio guy, Allen, the host of the show, right?
Yep.
So the reason I brought up who died, of course, is over the weekend. I think it was Friday night, overshadowed by Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron passing away is the biggest news, right? Especially in Atlanta, but he was a huge cultural icon, sports icon, entertainment icon. He was ambassador to the world for baseball and for civil rights, and an all-around super cool guy. And then, of course, we lost another huge name.
Before you move on to the other one, there's a movement now to change the Braves name to the Hammers.
Yeah, that's stupid. I hope they change the name of the stadium and they call it Hank Aaron Field at Truist Park. I mean, changing the name of the team is dumb. I heard that today. Yeah, the Hammers. Stupid idea. Leave them the Braves. But we lost a huge name in pop culture, Larry King. Now, Larry King has been around not really. Since the 80s, we've all gotten to know who Larry King is, because he was the host of Larry King Live for a whole bunch of years on CNN. Of course, they let him go, replaced him with Piers Morgan. That didn't work. And Larry went off and did other things. He worked for a couple different companies, continued to do his show.
Norm Macdonald doing him on Saturday Night Live was always good.
Yeah, Norm Macdonald did him well, and Larry King liked it, and they became friends and, did each other's shows. In fact, did you ever see the Larry King Live where Norm showed up dressed up as Larry King?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
But Larry King passed away. He had COVID-19, and that shortened his life. But I mean, he was in his 80s. He was a real, he lived a very
he had a lot of health problems going into COVID. So
absolutely. I believe at one point he had beaten cancer, but he got started on radio, and he used to do an overnight show, syndicated overnight show on the Mutual Broadcasting Network, and it would go from I think midnight to 5:30 in the morning, and I would go to sleep at night listening to them. And by the time I was grown up enough to appreciate his guests and what was going on, he left the show. And I believe the two people that replaced him, the first one might have been Tom Snyder, and then the last host of that show was David Brenner. So that shows you, David Brenner picked it up at the end, and that was it. Now we're going to talk about this and that. I don't really do a good David Brenner, but anyway, rest in peace, Larry King, and that'll get us into our radio topic tonight. So we're going to talk with Allen and Donna Stare from the WKRP-Cast podcast, and then come back when we're done with that interview, because we have what we watched and staff picks. Now let me pull a radio move right here. We are talking with Allen and Donna Stare from the WKRP-Cast podcast, and let's kind of reset a little bit. Yeah, my consultant's staring at me over here. He's got the thing. Reset. Tell us about the podcast, when it started, and how you got the idea to do it.
We're also doing it to test our marriage. How strong is our marriage?
Oh, okay. Is it working?
So far.
Yeah. It's still holding tight. We're 20 episodes in. It's still holding tight. But now, in the spring, when we went on lockdown, she got this idea to do she called it a wine after wellness check. And the idea was in March, it's starting to be spring around here, it's warming up. Every day at a certain time, the neighbors pull their lawn chairs out in the front yard with a bottle of wine. You wave to everybody and go, "How you doing?" Everybody yells up and down the street, says, "We're doing fine." And then you drink your wine. Well, she put up a Facebook page, and everybody started doing this on our street. Yeah, right, just on our street, in a block, right in a block area. Well, this is right at the end of March, and I remember because the first day that I pulled out all the sound equipment was April 1st, and I put a 2,000-watt PA system on the front porch, hooked it up with a soundboard, a microphone, and my iTunes account, and we started this thing we dubbed Finley at 5. Every day at 5 o'clock, for about an hour, I would just blast tunes off of the front porch, and I was DJing them between every song and making announcements, making jokes about, coming together while staying apart and the party at the pandemic and, that kind of thing. Just loved it, and I had not been DJing or in front of a crowd in several years. I used to do that. I was a wedding DJ for 23 years. I started a company about the time I started in radio. I got that dopamine rush, that performance Jones, that whole being in front of the crowd again thing, and I loved it. And every night for 60 straight nights, I walked out on the front porch, flipped the switches, fired things up, and the people were texting requests.
Nice.
We were so loud, we were getting texts from a 4-block area around us. People saying they're going out on their patios. They come out there with a cocktail. They sit down at 5. They love to unwind, listen to the show. We had cops coming by all the time because they're friends of ours. They're making requests.
Nice.
So, the mayor came by one night. So we just had a blast with it. Well, June 1st, Illinois went into a different phase where we were able to kind of move out of the lockdown period of the whole pandemic thing. So we kind of set that as the date of, this is it for Finley at 5. We're going to shut it down. It didn't seem like a good idea to just keep doing it, forever. There was no reason for continuing once we got through the lockdown period and then things kind of changed. It seemed like a good progression. So we ended it on June 1st. Well, about the end of May, I'm kind of wandering through the house in a funk thinking, man, it's going to be over. I'm not going to be DJing anymore every day and having my, have my little show going on. And I happened to be going through the DVD cabinet, and I came across my Shout Factory box set of WKRP.
There you go.
There it is, right there. Yes, sir. Which I bought in like 2014 or 2015 with every good intention to sit down and watch it, beginning to end, and never ever did. So I took it to her, and I said, you know how we've talked about I want to do a podcast or we ought to do a podcast? I got an idea. So that was kind of where it started, was just really finding that box set. And it was one of those things where it was kind of reconnecting. Like I say, for me, it's something that I was addicted to when I was in junior high school. Loved the show. I walked into a radio station 3 months before my 16th birthday with my first professional on-air job. All I knew about radio was what I'd learned from watching 2 seasons of WKRP. So, I mean, it had and then I've had pretty much a 40-year broadcasting career since then. It had a big impact on me. So it was something that I definitely had a tie to. Well, she had a similar tie to it, but not the professional side. She had more of an emotional, character-driven side. So you want to talk about that?
Well, it ran from 78 to 82. And those were the exact years I was in college.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'd all watch it in the dorms. And I just loved watching it because I fell in love with all the characters. The way they worked together, it was so natural. They all got along, and you could tell they were really enjoying themselves doing what they were doing. And so, yeah, so I had a love with it from that respect.
It definitely influenced other later shows like The Office and News Radio and those ensemble comedy.
A lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that we've read, and we have digested a lot. One of the first things I did over the summer was read Michael Castle's book, America's Favorite Radio Station, which is really kind of the only definitive history of WKRP out there. But then there are a ton of really cool, interesting fan blogs, some of which contain valuable trivia and information that really is stuff that it didn't get written down anywhere else as far as we can tell. So those things we started digging into and really kind of laying the groundwork and learning the subject. That was really the summer. We just kind of spent the summer reading, studying.
I read Lonnie Anderson's book, My Life in High Heels.
A good juicy Burt Reynolds chapter in that book?
Oh, lots.
It's like the last 100 pages.
Oh, okay.
She would every night she'd go, well, you're not going to believe that, and then give me a rundown on the latest chapters, of what she'd read. You're not going to believe this. So.
You when you listen to the very first episode of the WKRP-Cast, I learned stuff I didn't even know. I never knew there was a series called Good Morning World with Goldie Hawn, the morning show Lewis and Clark. Now, I never heard of these actors before, Joby Baker and Ronnie Schnell. I never heard of those actors.
Yeah, and you're going back to the mid-'60s, and this was part of that summer of research.
Okay.
That's one of the things we came across, and there were you get to a point, and I tell her it's trivia begets trivia, which you find something out, and you can always dig down another layer, go another realm out, and connect things up, and eventually you just have to put a stop to it. We just did Commercial Break, which, oh man, I just love that episode. That's the Randall Ferryman funeral home jingle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Well, a couple of people put on the Facebook page after we posted that episode, oh man, what about that Chris DeBurse song, Don't Pay the Ferryman? Okay, inspired by the same thing that happened in Greek and Roman mythology, the ferryman of the ferry across the river Styx. It came about 5 years later and had no connection whatsoever to WKRP. So yeah, still it is trivia tied to the ferryman, but we just had to say no, and it would have been a great song to drop in there, but eventually you get to a point where you've just got to go, okay, we're going to talk for 7 hours and include every little thread of everything that ties in here, or we're going to try and get it done in an hour. And we've been getting it in about an hour. So yeah, there are those places where we just have to stop, digging out further and further. But we kind of indulged a little of that in that prologue. Getting into the various things in there that affected what Hugh Wilson had to work with. Because I kind of look at Hugh Wilson as he's the artist of this thing. And, maybe he liked to work in oils. Well, CBS gave him watercolors, that kind of thing. He had to adapt and accommodate in order to get it done. And it's kind of fun to look at how he did these workarounds, getting the cheap music so that he really had real rock and roll, those kinds of things.
Well, you take a look at Hugh, who learned everything at WQ WKRP-XI right here in Atlanta.
Quixie.
Quixie, 790. I didn't know. Also, I didn't know that they used to say Quixie and Dixie because I guess
Quixie and Dixie.
get that, right?
Most of the 70s, it was Quixie and Dixie, yeah.
Was that Skinny Bobby Harper would be the influence for Howard Hessman? A little.
Yeah, and we kind of talk about that. Howard Hessman has said that was great for Hugh, that Hugh was influenced by Skinny Bobby, but Howard said, I didn't know Skinny Bobby.
Right.
And so Howard knew guys. He worked at an underground station in San Francisco, KMPX or PMX. It's PMX. But he worked there, which that was kind of an underground. DJs just run their own format, so everybody's show was radically different. So he met a lot of really unique guys there that kind of influenced the Johnny Fever character. And he really feels like more so than Skinny Bobby did. The
Maybe
Skinny
the
Bobby was the
inspiration.
influence for Hugh. That was the influence for Hugh.
But he basically walked into that radio station and from that created this awesome television show. Pretty much. I mean, in a nutshell, there's way more to it than that. Speaking of, when I met Howard Hessman, he and Lonnie Anderson were the grand marshals of Dragon Con a couple years ago, maybe four.
That's the funniest damn picture of Howard Hessman.
They're sitting together, and I got both of them to sign it. And when I got to Howard, I said, I work in radio, and you're one of the reasons I work in radio, aside from the local DJs. I said, and he went, I am so sorry.
It sounds like we just interviewed Sparky Marcus Isolio, the guy that plays young Master Carlson.
Okay.
Yeah,
Arthur Jr.
Little Arthur Jr. And he gave us the greatest line about Howard Hessman. It will be in the episode, but he said it's like Howard Hessman has comedy aftershave. He said he said there's a pheromone to him that makes you laugh. You can't be around him without laughing. He said he is so funny. And he just couldn't. He was so bowled over by the whole cast, the whole idea of being on KRP. It's a really fantastic interview we've got with him.
When I moved to Atlanta, my goal was to come down here. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and so when I moved down to Atlanta and get a job in media, I was mid-20s. I'm like, I'm working in restaurants. So I came down here, was working at Fuddruckers as a manager, and you guys are in Illinois?
Mm-hmm.
I started out as a Bob Evans manager down on the.
Oh, really? Well, down on the farm, huh?
Ate lots of sausage, but never mind that. But I get down here and I get this job with a company called IQ Television Group, and what they did was they did TV commercials for radio stations when radio stations had the budget to do them, and one of his clients was Star 94. And Star 94 at the time owned by a company called Jefferson Pilot, big, huge building in Buckhead, neighborhood in Atlanta. And all the commercials for the morning show were really, they were film and they were scripts. And I got to meet a guy by the name of Clark Brown. And he was the creative director for all this. And my boss was from England. He's like, Tim, do you know of a show called WKRP? And I'm like, yeah, everybody knows that show. Oh, yeah, okay. Clark was one of the characters' inspiration. I believe his name was Herb. I go, oh, no, because he didn't dress like this in 1997 and 98. He was very well dressed.
Well, and he has said that during the 70s, I think the quote was, clothes were kind of working against you. He said that in an interview. And he said, I had a sense of personal style, which was rather unique. We'll leave it at that. That was his comment on it. But yeah, he sounds like a pretty easygoing guy. Really.
What?
And I guess there was a point along about 80, 81 where Hugh Wilson went back down to Atlanta, was visiting the station, and they sat around kind of in their bullpen, and he started pointing out, going, you're Johnny.
Yeah.
You're Herb. And Clark was, they all said they were very proud of, what influence they had contributed to him to create those characters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he definitely pointed them out. They were definite. There were archetypes for them.
Well, let me tell you, the signal is still active. WQXI is now known as Radio Korea. But AM doesn't
do a goose drop.
Yes, no, but for a while, it went from being Quixie to being 790 The Zone, And the morning guy for a long time was Don Imus, of course, syndicated. They piped him in. And then it was a sports talk station, and it was an LLC, so they were paying to be on the air. And once that wrapped up, I think for a while they simulcast with the FM, which is still Star 94 pop station. But I'm rambling. Before we get going, so what do you do in radio?
Oh, well, I'm really an advertising marketing guy.
Mm-hmm.
I started in radio and love radio, but I technically have not worked at a radio station for like 25 years.
Oh, okay.
But I'm in radio stations all the time because I do advertising on a local level for anymore now that I can create MP3s and email them to the station. I don't get by the station as much. It used to be, there'd be that tape cycle drop off where I'd get to see my rep every now and then, or I'd get to see, get to talk to the guys on the air or whatever, kind of keep a hand in kind of thing. But anymore, my radio affiliation is more through kind of secondary. I'm an ad guy, and I've got a handful of local clients that I do work for, and we still use traditional broadcast to a certain extent. It is a part of a media mix, which includes social media, et cetera, but there's still some people just tuning in on the car radio.
No, that's awesome. I
became aware of you guys when I saw your name right above ours on the podcast magazine.
The Hot 50.
Yeah, the Hot 50.
Which we didn't even know that existed.
I didn't either.
We didn't either.
What is this?
Congratulations, you've made it into the top 50. Okay, cool.
Really?
That's awesome.
You know what I did with that though? I wrote up a press release. I'm a PR guy. I'm an advertising and marketing guy. I've got a list of 196 media outlets within a 100-mile radius of me that I can hit one button and I can send them all a press release. So I wrote up a press release. We did interviews, like 3 newspapers, a couple of radio stations. We got posted on their websites. So that was a lot of fun. And actually a guy that's a friend of mine who's a GM at a TV station near here in Decatur, Illinois, I was talking to him on the phone, and I said, we got in this podcast Hot 50. And he goes, now, what's that again? And I told him what it was. He goes, you got a press release on that? I said, I sent you the press release back when we launched the podcast, and you didn't run it. He goes, yeah, but everybody's launching podcasts. Getting somebody to listen to it, that's news.
Yes, definitely. That is the truth. That is the truth.
You guys do pretty good numbers in Atlanta, right?
We are, and it's been growing. Atlanta is like one of our top 5 cities that we get downloads from. For some reason, Centennial, Colorado, huge listeners in Centennial, Colorado. Atlanta comes through well. We got a lot in Chicago, and I think that is because I'm a huge fan. You probably know the name if you've never heard his show, but Jonathan Brandmeier.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, legendary. I've been a Johnny B fan since he came to Chicago on the Loop, and he's now streaming live every Saturday morning. He goes on with a live stream at 10 a.m. So like the second or third week we were doing this, I thought, what the hell, I'll give him a call. So at a minute before 10, I called the line into the studio, which he's built this studio in his basement. He put like $500,000 into a studio. He's got all the toys. It's everything like he had when he was at the Loop. And he's got this gorgeous phone bank and the whole thing. So I call in and I get, hello. And it's him whispering. Oh, yeah? And we do this kind of whisper bit back and forth. It was the start of the show. He goes, why are you calling? I said, I'm starting a podcast about WKRP. So we talk about it. He plays the Richard Cheese version of the WKRP theme. Richard Cheese is the lounge act, the guy that does like AC/DC lounge style. So he played that, and then he said, why don't you open the show? And I went into just a super hype, ladies and gentlemen, from Chicago, Illinois, Jonathan Brandmeier and the Shit Show. And I just kind of did this off the top of my head, just kind of threw this thing out there. He starts laughing. Buzz starts laughing, his news guy. And then he clicked, and I'm gone. And they talked about it for like another 2 or 3 minutes. And he's going, well, I wish that guy the best of luck. I wish him the best of luck. Good luck on the podcast. And he's doing WKRP. I think what was it? WKRP-Cast. So they're talking about it. All of a sudden, our listenership in Chicago, we saw it that day. Just, it shot up.
That's amazing.
And on our Apple podcast, if you look on there, 2 or 3 of the reviews say, heard you on Johnny B's show, haven't listened yet, but here's 5 stars. They gave me 5 stars just for being on Johnny's show. These people, so he broke the internet the first week he went live with his stream. He's got like 1.6 million listeners or something. He's doing some phenomenal numbers.
That's amazing for a podcast only show.
Yeah, streaming only. Yeah. But he went with a service out of Chicago that guaranteed him. They said you cannot bring down the system. Mm-hmm. It took 7 minutes, and they brought down the system. It was completely done. So these guys called him up. They gave him a huge rebate on the cost of the system that he was working with. And he said, then they said, and we'd like to advertise with you too. Because he got the numbers. So so that was a huge boost to us right there. Just getting that couple of minute mention on his podcast. All of a sudden, we had a lot of listeners coming out of Chicago. So I really credit him for what we've got from there. We can't get anybody in our hometown to listen to us. I think the next door neighbor's listening, but
yeah, I listened to last week's. Do you pick up Chicago radio?
Oh yeah.
Now the loop is gone, right? That doesn't, or is it back? WLUP.
I can pick it up. You didn't ask if I'm listening to Chicago radio. I'm really not listening to Chicago radio. Do not tune in that often. They went to a sports format for a while. Was the last I knew about them. So they may not be there. But the days of the loop and the FM and AM. There was AM 1000 and then the FM 95 or whatever. Yeah, that's all gone. That's back when it was Kevin Matthews and Johnny B and Stephen Gary and those guys. So
the last time we did something with them in my old company, we did a commercial with Sammy Hagar, and he wouldn't go to Chicago, so we had to go to wherever his house was out in California. And whenever I'm in Chicago, I listen to the loop. But I worked for the Cumulus radio for some time, and for a while Cumulus had the loop, and they put Mancow on, and then they took our midday girl and flew her up to Chicago, and she did middays there, but now she's back in Atlanta. So I was just curious. I don't work for them anymore. I work for a talk station, Cox WSB.
Sure. No, Cox Communications.
Yeah, but you could probably get it right.
Mancow went super political for a while.
I know he did.
Conservative talk, and
Yep.
Yeah, it was like, boy, what happened to the guy that used to do the goofy bits? And
he did goofy bits. They flew me up there to be an associate producer when I was, you get fired a lot when you work in radio, and they flew me up there. It's the only time I've ever been to Chicago. They put me up in
I got out of radio.
Yeah, because you're dependent on someone else. But they flew me up there, put me in a hotel in Chinatown, and I got food poisoning, so I didn't complete the interview. I was in the hotel room for 2 days. But I got to meet him, and I thought he was a nice guy. But pretty much after that, it just went to, he was on Fox News, and it just became politics. And, maybe that's why he's not on the air anymore. I don't know. Is he? I don't know.
Not that I know of, no. But I think he kind of touched that third rail of power.
Yeah.
There's a difference between getting the gang together to have a laugh and do something stupid and getting the gang together to go, we're going to change the country.
Yeah, I know.
There's some power there that sometimes blinds those guys, and I think maybe he kind of touched a little of that.
But what you're saying about Jonathan Brandmeier is, you take your show, you take your popularity, you put it out there on the podcast, and you get 1 million downloads. That is super impressive, and that's a way to survive in this market.
Well, and Johnny's deal is, and kind of what we do as well that I've always loved about him is it's fun. It's over the top, it's hilarious, it's goofy, but it's not mean.
Right.
It's not, there's nobody on the outside of the joke. Everybody's kind of on the inside of the joke, and everybody's having a lot of fun. And he always got, just huge laughs and funny stuff, and would just do over the top stuff. But never with a mean kind of vein to it, and I've always appreciated that, and kept it positive, and that's what we try to do with what we're doing, and I think some of the interviews that we've gotten with Tom Chihak, who was first season story editor and wrote 3 of the first season episodes, he called us back in November. We just got the phone number on the Facebook page, and out of the blue, we'd had lunch. And I'm walking down into the family room, and my phone rings, and it's like someplace Colorado. And I normally, if it's not in my phone, for some reason, I pick this one up. And he just starts talking, and he said his name right at the top of the call, and he said, so I was wondering, do you have any contact info on, like, Blake? Do you know where Blake is? And I'm going, who is this again? And then it dawned on me, and I'm glad I was near my chair because my knees went out from under me. I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. You're the guy whose name is there. There are only 3 of you, and you're one of them on the top of that every show. He goes, yeah, that's me. He goes, I lost. Well, he's asking about Blake Hunter, one of the other guys that was in the writer's room with him. And he said, I just lost touch with him over the years. And he goes, I thought maybe, you guys doing this, you had some contact with him. Well, Tom made a horrible mistake by letting me get his phone number in my phone. So then it became, I said, you don't mind if I call you every once in a while if I got a question? And he's like, no, that'd be fine. And so I told Donna, I said, okay, I'm be a restraining order filed against me if I stop this.
Who was Gordon Sims? We talked to him a lot.
Yeah.
Called him, and he didn't know a couple of the answers, and he said, well, let me give Tim a call on that, and I'll call you right back.
And we're going, Tim
Reed?
Tim Reed? He just picked up the phone, called Tim Reed. And it was so funny because we're talking about this, and the thing that came up in Who is Gordon Sims, there's a little talk piece in there where Venus is saying, yeah, that's how black guys say this, or that's how black guys say that. Well, Tom Chiaka's white. And I said, Tom, how were you writing that? Well, he was saying, yeah, probably that was a lot of Tim's influence. Well, then he said he got to thinking about it and thought, yeah, how did I write that? What was going on there? So he called Tim up, and that was one of the things that he was asking him about. And they wound up having a really nice conversation, about a 90-minute conversation, but answered a lot of the questions that he had raised during our talk. And this is stuff that he told me on one of the phone calls. Since WKRP, this man has written 380 hours of primetime television.
Wow.
Since WKRP. That's a 40-year career of writing and producing TV. So the fact he's a little fuzzy on some KRP details, I can let him slide on that, But so he called me back just out of the blue. We hadn't talked about it. It's like 2 hours after our interview. Thankfully, I was in this room where the microphone is. He calls me on the iPhone. Hey, I talked to Tim. And he starts launched right into these stories that Tim had told him and kind of filled in some of the details. I ran over here. I had my mic and just jammed it into the phone and hit record.
Nice.
Because it was so great, and I wanted him saying it. There was no way I could be jotting notes or, some way say, and then Tom said, and then Tom said. Right. Then it's like second, third person away from the actual reporting. So that kind of stuff has been so cool to get.
Oh yeah,
in these shows and things that there's a guy in Canada that did a blog very similar. He did in blog form what we're doing in podcast form. He went through every episode, watched it, wrote it out. His name's Roy Penny. Well, Roy kind of adopted us early on, and we talk about Roy in the Contest Nobody Could Win episode. Roy was the first one to catch and really put a spotlight on the fact that there are 2 different endings to that episode.
Okay.
One of them got out because of the Shout Factory disc. The one that we all know and love was the one that was in the syndication package. But so Roy got in touch with us early on and has been really kind of a mentor and somebody to bounce things off of and somebody to talk with about it. And I keep telling him, it's like, we heard this from so-and-so and I want to find verification. And he said, you realize there's nothing out there written down or documented or footnoted, or nobody put together a big diary of this. They just made a TV show for 4 years and then went their separate ways. Mm-hmm. And he said, what you're doing now, you guys are documenting and kind of assembling this stuff in one place where it can be accessed. So he's really been kind of a big cheerleader for that, just the fact we are tracking down these people and having them talk about their experience. Yeah. He's kind of creating this little bit of a repository of WKRP information that has never been available before.
And I bet you that makes them very, very pleased. You know what I mean? Like, because here's a piece of history that no one's ever documented of my life and my creative work, and now there's volumes of it. How many episodes are you going to do?
There's only 88, so.
Yeah, they're 80. Well, Now we do all of it. There are actually 90 in syndication because 2 of them were ours, and they had to cut them in half for syndication. So there's a 90-episode syndication package out there, but what we've got on the Shout Factory is the 88. And we haven't hit an hour yet. We really fill an hour doing 25 minutes of sitcom. Mm-hmm. So I think if we get to a 48 or 50-minute bit of information, that's going to make for a long podcast. We're probably going to have to break it up into do 2 parts with it, kind of like what they did with syndication, cutting it down. Right.
Yeah, but not everybody's listening to 4 hours like Rogan. I mean, that's
no.
Tell everybody where you're at right now in the series and what you got upcoming. I know you're getting close to my favorite episode, which is Fish Story.
That's next week.
Ooh,
no, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Tomorrow is.
I do. White Axton. I do for now and we're coming up right to the end of the first season.
Right.
And there was a lot of weirdness that happened in the back end of that first season. They had a hiatus over November and December, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of shows in the back end of the season because they had some that were on the shelf. They had some scripts that had been written prior to hiatus but weren't produced until after the hiatus. So we're coming up to one like Preacher is the last one of the season. It was actually the 3rd episode that was shot. So, I mean, you're going backwards for like the details that we look at on set and things. We can kind of date when an episode was produced by what the posters are and what the what the set looks like. So yeah, we are just releasing tomorrow. I do for now, which is the Hoyt Axton shows up as an old flame of Lonnie's from Jennifer's when she was much younger, and
cat named Kalamazoo.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. So we get a lot of that in there. So that's what comes out tomorrow. Then next week we've got is it Young Master Carlson? Yeah, Young Master Carlson. The next week on the 2nd is Young Master Carlson, then Fish Story. And Young Master Carlson is where we've got Sparky Marcus. We've got the guy that played Young Master Carlson as a guest with us, and this guy was a hoot. We talked to him for like 90 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. Really a blast, and a ton. 53, 54, now. Yeah. A ton of information. The kid was 11 at the time he did this. So, forming a lot of memories and, a lot of recall. Plus, he just has a photographic memory, which he says is really what helped him during his time as a child actor.
And it was a very good experience for him. He said it was one of his top experiences in all of his acting as a child. That was one of his favorite shows to do.
He did not have the acting Jones. It was not him that wanted to be an actor. It was
parents.
His mother.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like pretty much mom and dad went along with it, and mom's saying things like, "You got to get in there and get that job, Spark. The family's dependent on you." And you're putting all this on a 9-year-old kid that the family could go under financially if you don't get this job. It wasn't true. It was just him being pushed by mom to go act. And when he turned 18, he got out of the house. He left the business, left it all behind. And we read this interview with him talking about this, how it was a horrible, career and a horrible life as a child actor, and you don't get to be in Scouts or Little League or any of that stuff. Yeah. And so we're reading this thing, do we really want to bother him? But he said in this interview he loved WKRP. So I found him on LinkedIn, and I sent him a messenger thing on LinkedIn, and I said, and he doesn't go by Sparky anymore. He goes by Marcus Usolio. And I said, I headed the subject line. I said, would you happen to know a guy named Sparky? And in the message, I said, we will restrict it to WKRP. We know you had a pretty lousy life, as a kid actor, but we just want to talk about WKRP. Well, he got back with me, and he said, guys, I normally don't talk about this stuff, but I could tell your enthusiasm for the show.
Wow.
I wanted to talk with you. And he got to talking, and wow, he told us some stories about other sets, other shows, just some cool interactions he had with other stars. And once he got relaxed and we got to talking, he told us some really phenomenal stories. So we're going to use parts of that interview are going to be in the Young Master Carlson episode, but then as a season capper, when we're done with the last show of season 1, we're going to release the entire interview as an extra.
Wow.
So that gives us a week off because that's already done.
Well, before we go, please tell everybody where they can find the podcast and all your social media and all that stuff. You know, the consultant told me I had to do that.
What? Well, we're on just about every possible podcast app. Whatever you get out there, we're on it. It took us forever to get on iHeartRadio for some reason. I don't know. But we got on all the others. So, and we're on like 90 of them now. Because when you get on the first layer, then you get on all the secondaries. So anywhere you've got a podcast app, search WKRP-Cast, and we should come up. You'll see us up there with the names. So, and then it's the same for social media. We're really only on Facebook, and you're doing some Instagram, right?
Not a lot.
Okay, not a lot, but doing a little bit of Instagram. So we haven't really exploited the social media the way we should.
I think Facebook is better for podcasts because you get a chance to interact a little better and a little cleaner than you do on Twitter. And, Twitter, you get lost, but you can have a nice thread on Facebook where you're talking about this and that and the other thing. And Dustin, you've been quiet. Is there we haven't let you speak. So is there anything you want to say or ask?
No, I was just as curious as far as upcoming. Are there any other cast members or people on the show itself that you guys are planning to have on, or is it open doors for you for, invitations or?
If you know anybody, please let us know. Actually, we have kind of a little behind-the-scenes little army helping us now. There were some guys that were kind of standoffish the first 2 or 3 weeks that are big WKRP fans. That once we kind of got out there, we proved ourselves, we were doing a quality show, it was real information, it wasn't rehashing all the stuff that you always see on IMDb. There was more there, that kind of thing.
Right.
These guys started helping us, and they're going like, oh, well, this actually is the real name of Frank Bonner's daughter, and they're giving us this contact information for these people that know people. Yeah. We're talking to Gary Sandy's girlfriend right now, and she will relay things back. Gary doesn't message directly on Facebook, but she said Gary's listened to a couple. I will send over links to the show and say, oh, you guys have to listen to this one. This is how we used an interview, and this is what we'd like to do with Gary. And she comes back going, oh, he really likes these. He says, you're doing a great job with it. So I don't know if she's telling me the truth or not, but one of these guys that is very involved with one of the really big Facebook pages, there are a couple of enormous WKRP fan pages. One of the guys that runs one of these big pages is friends with her, and he's kind of done introductions and vouched for us, and that's how we got that contact. So a lot of these folks are still out there, and they're still active, and they're still available, but they're very guarded because they've had 40 years of being bombarded with people like us wanting to talk to them. Right. So we're trying to not be aggressive and in their face, but we are, and also like Tom sharing our information. We asked him, we said, hey, Tom, tell Tim about us.
Yeah.
Well, when we got back on the phone, I said, hey, did you mention this to Tim? He said, yeah, I did. He said he doesn't do that kind of thing anymore, but he'll give it a listen. And we're like, okay, that's fair enough. Maybe at some point he'll decide, I'll talk to those guys.
Yeah.
So we're open to that and would love that. But right now, aside from Sparky, we don't have anybody, do we?
I was lucky enough to be Facebook friends with Hugh before he passed.
Were you really?
Oh.
Yeah. I'm still friends with him, but he's no longer with us.
He's not as active anymore. Yeah.
You're always on.
Yeah, you can't leave Facebook. I have become such a fan of him since we've been doing this. And, when I watched it before, I didn't have any idea. You see those names fly by at the beginning and end of the show. You don't really pay any attention to them. But now really studying him and studying his creative process and how much of this show is him. I mean, he's involved in every aspect, down to costuming.
He was like a combination between Mark Twain and David Letterman.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. Yeah, great analogy. Yeah, he definitely was. He's got that folksiness, but he's also got that acerbic wit that can just cut you up. He's sharp. And a lot of times we'll be watching and I'll laugh at something and I'll go, Hugh line.
So let's real quick. Good Morning World is the first ever sitcom about a radio station, right?
Yes.
WKRP is clearly the best. shortest lived, perhaps, and maybe even the worst would be Hello, Larry, starring McLean Stevenson.
McLean Stevenson, Illinois boy from right near us here.
Spinoff of Different Strokes. And I love that show. I met Meadowlark Lemon one time. He was playing basketball. I think it was 11 or 10. Like, I loved you on Hello, Larry. And he kept looking at me like, yeah, okay, kid. No one ever said that ever. News Radio and Fraser. Those are the ones that come to mind. I can't think of any others.
Love News Radio. I was a big fan of News Radio.
Me too.
Yeah, and I think it was more the writing than, and that's really what it is. And it's something that we're kind of finding with WKRP. Early on, a lot of radio stories.
Right.
But as you move, it becomes more people stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the radio station is in the background. It's not at the forefront so much as what we see in the early of season 1. So, yeah, it's kind of the same with News Radio. It was a lot more of the people interaction and the people stories.
WKRP is a great series. It still holds up. If you've never watched it, watch it now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get the DVDs and follow along and listen to the WKRP-Cast every week and go back and watch the episode either before or after you listen to their podcast. It's great. Even if you've never seen it, jump in. It still holds up today, even 40 years later.
Yeah, you will laugh if you watched it.
Our daughter and her husband, they started watching it, and they'd never heard of it before, and they can't wait to.
She had, but our daughter had because she grew up in a household with me, so around it.
But now they at night they're like, hey, let's get another episode and watch it. So they're into it.
They've gone beyond where we are with the show. They can't wait. They want to watch ahead, so they're watching ahead. Well, now I think they've fallen behind with the podcast. We're on them going, did you hear the latest? Well, no, we're behind a little bit, which is. That is the refrain. Everybody that listens to podcasts is, okay, I'm about 3 weeks behind. That's what we hear from everybody. It's like, we're catching up.
I'm doing something similar with the Sopranos. The two of the cast members from the Sopranos have a Talking Sopranos podcast. So
I've seen that. Yes, I haven't listened, but I saw the chip on there. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because I've watched that show probably every season at least 10 times, and I'm doing it again. And now I'm going to do it with WKRP. Allen and Donna Stare, thank you very much. The podcast is WKRP-Cast, and you can find it on any of your podcatchers. This has been a lot of fun, and we're big fans of the show. Love what you're doing. And if you're out there listening to Radio Labyrinth right now, give these guys' podcast a shot because it's great. I mean, the first episode alone, I was hooked. And
thanks. Thank you very much. They get better. They really do.
Tomorrow's a good one.
Tomorrow's a very good one. Yes. Yeah.
I'm not skipping ahead. I'm going in order. We have a rule.
All right.
Keep it canon and go in order. Those are our rules.
I really think that once you hit Hold Up, which is the 4th or 5th episode, I really kind of feel like that's kind of where we opened up and really kind of hit our stride and got more comfortable with it. And I felt like in the early ones we were a little worried. We're sitting here, just worried about everything. And now we're a little more free with the commentary. But, I mean, we still stay very closely to an outline. But along about Hold Up, that's where we start having a lot of fun.
Yeah. But you get in a groove, and you're comfortable, and you know what you're talking about. That makes everything so much easier. So
yeah, before you guys, I had no idea who Wingy Manone was.
Wingy Manone Memorial Hall.
All right. Well,
he was alive when they said that too about the Wingy Manone.
Oh, really?
Memorial Hall, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, let's all say Chai Chai Rodriguez and
Appalachia.
And
Booger.
Yeah, and we're back. Everybody listen to the WKRP-Cast. It is available wherever you find your podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. They call them podcatchers, I believe. So thank you to Allen and Donna Stare again. And if you're a fan of WKRP, it's a great companion.
It's a pretty good show. The basic show, I don't think ever jumped the shark.
Mm-mm.
Then it came back as the new WKRP, and that was not great.
The syndicated show, right?
Yeah, they had a lot of this cast members doing the directing. I think like Les Nessman, he directed like 3 or 4 of those, and then a few of the other cast members did as well. So I think they were kind of using that as a stepping stone afterwards, but didn't really take them anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you can watch it where, Jeff? CBS All Access?
It's on CBS All Access if you subscribe to that, which I don't. but it's also on DVDs. The Shout Factory has a really good DVD set of all 4 seasons and a bunch of extras, cool extras.
Cool. So let's talk about what we watched and do our staff picks. I set mine up in a weird way this week, and I'll just do it first and quick. What I watched and liked was Spycraft, a show I found on Netflix. I hadn't read anything about it. I saw it pop up. It was a recommended, and I watched the first couple of episodes. It's kind of the history of espionage and the tactics that spies use, in like James Bond type stuff. The first episode's about listening and bugging and the technology. There's even somebody developed a bullet, or they shot a gun into a tree, and the bullet had a microphone in it, and they were able. So it's a lot of Soviet U.S. stuff from the Cold War era. And then the second episode really shocked me. It was about poisoning, and when you think of poisoning and somebody dying of poisoning from, like a nuclear cell or plutonium or polonium or whatever, you think Russia, because Russia does that kind of shit. And it's a lot of Putin stuff in there. And also Kim Jong-un, who, had the Vietnamese and the Thai girl kill his brother at an airport, and they thought they were just doing a reality show. They had no idea. And it's interesting. If you're into that kind of thing.
I'm going to check it out. I watched the commercial that they have on Netflix for it, where they were talking about the cell phone interception stations.
Yeah.
Where they set up like a little cell tower that's an intermediary between the target that they're spying on and the actual cell tower. And it like clones the cell tower. So it thinks it's connecting to the regular, AT&T tower, but it's actually going straight to them and then to the AT&T tower, so they can read all your text.
And they set them up in airport parking lots a lot of the time, so that when you get off the plane and turn your phone back on, it literally intercepts it before it gets to the tower. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I saw that too. Yeah,
so no more carrying your phone with you.
Yeah, or just turn it on when you get like 5 or 6 miles away from the airport.
That's how they follow your ass. Watched and hated. I finally finished A Teacher. I gave it a break for a while because it was getting a little too intense, but I finally finished it. It's on Hulu, also FX. Really, really horrible character that the actress who's in it plays, I forget her name.
The teacher.
The teacher, and Kate Mara is her name. And the character is so despicable and terrible. She destroys this kid's life. And then it shows in the future, I won't spoil it for you, but it shows her life in the future and his life in the future, 10 years after the affair. And she still won't take any responsibility for what she did. And you're going to end up going, oh, what a bitch. And I hope that you have the same, reaction.
I'm not going to have the same reaction because I'm never going to watch it. But
well, if you do watch it, yeah. I highly recommend the movie. The movie's more psychological and the character is more damaged. And it's more entertaining. And the guy is a typical, he's like a douche. He's a jock. This kid is sensitive on the TV show. In the movie, the kid is like, yeah, I don't care. I get to bang the chick. Anyway, something I'm looking forward to, TBD, Ryan Murphy's Impeachment American Crime Story, which would cover the Clinton impeachment, Monica Lewinsky. And you have Sarah is in it, of course, and she's playing Linda Tripp. Sarah Paulson is going to play Linda Tripp, which
John Goodman should play her.
I know John Goodman should. I can't believe Sarah Paulson's going to play her. But that was such a weird time in our lives. We were wrapping up our 20s, maybe not so much Dustin, but wrapping up our 20s. It was the first real president that Gen X put into office and was supporting, and it was just such a weird, stupid impeachment over something dumb and stupid. So I look forward to their interpretation of it. They did a really good job with OJ. So I don't know. It's to be determined when it's coming out. I'm sure COVID messed it up a lot, but it'll be out.
So I'll keep an eye out for that.
And my staff pick is this week's episode of Talking Sopranos. I've been waiting a long time for this one. Dominic Chianese. Is that how you say it?
Uncle June.
Yeah, Uncle Junior. And he's the guest. And of course, they are still on season 4. I believe this will be the second or third episode from season 4 that they discuss. But looking forward to that. I usually listen to it on Monday nights after we're done recording. So those are mine.
I watched The Stand number 6 which nobody else has caught up, and you're not watching at all. The Expanse season 5. You still watching The Expanse?
I'm on season 3, so I'm way behind, but you can talk about it.
No, I won't spoil it for anybody, but it's so great. This is the final season on Amazon, I think. I watched that Alice in Borderland that you discussed a couple weeks ago.
You dig it?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love it. It's something I've never seen before, so and it's done well, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was watching some behind the scenes shit about how they did it with all the green screens and stuff, because even though COVID was going on and stuff, there were still tons of people on the streets and stuff, so they had to shoot a bunch of scenes at night, and they shot a bunch of stuff on green screens, and then they built like a miniature city some miles away from the actual city, so they could have the city sets.
Right.
It's basically the plot of the whole thing is that everybody on Earth disappears except for like these 25 people or whatever, and they're all made to play this game, kind of like a jigsaw kind of thing.
Yeah, and you die. If you die, you die.
Yeah, it was good. I watched all of it.
Yeah, me too.
I got into this show called The Wilds.
Yeah, what is that? I've seen it promoted
on Amazon Prime. It's kind of like a cross between it's these bunch of these teenage girls survive a plane crash, and they're on this island. So it's kind of like Lost, and a cross between that and maybe Lord of the Flies, or I don't know, Lady of the Flies.
Lady of the Flies.
Lady of the Flies, because they're all chicks. But there's like some weird experiment going on, and it's that lady that was Nate's girlfriend on 6 Feet Under.
Okay.
You know who I mean?
No.
She's like running the whole experiment behind the scenes or whatever. But there's all kinds of flashbacks and flash forwards. So it's Lost-ish.
Oh, so it's right up my alley.
Yeah, I think you'd like it if you watched it.
So there are but there's no time jumps, right? It's flashback.
Right. They flash back to like when they were kids, and they flash forward to where they are now.
Okay.
And the current stuff going on the island. So I'm almost done with that. It's on Amazon.
The Wilds.
Yeah, The Wilds. My staff pick is going to be Gilbert's Amazing Colossal Podcast this week. Their 2020 in memoriam episode.
Oh.
Which kind of like we did at the end of the year. They bust out one for everybody that we lost in 2020.
They do a really good job of theirs.
Yeah.
I mean, we did great too, but theirs is always spot on. I'll do Steph's real quick before you go, Dustin.
Sure.
Football, she watched that. She rewatched Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Vengeance Killer Millionaires, Forged in Fire, and started White Tiger. And her staff pick is The Little Things, which is on HBO Max starting on the 29th of January. Oh, by the way, I didn't even mention this at the top of the show. She's out sick, in case you're wondering where she is. She doesn't feel well today. So.
She's growing that Quado from that second vaccination.
Yeah, she is not growing a Quado out of her body.
Let's see. Again, I watched WandaVision as well. We'll talk about that. That I liked. Search Party on HBO Max. Didn't really care for it. It's about a girl who went to college with this girl who is now missing, and she has this group of friends that are, I guess, supposed to be like a typical group of college kids in the modern era, but I couldn't get over just how 80s preppy douchey they were. It's just like, not only is the 80s coming back as far as fashion with hipsters, it seems to be that douchey jock, arrogance to the preps that were in all the 80s movies.
Yeah.
That's kind of becoming like another trope for a modern hipsters, in at least in this story anyway. And it just really kind of, I couldn't get over it.
Yeah, Johnny from Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I'm probably not gonna keep going with it. But the main girl that's in it, she's done a really good job. But the rest of the cast I just couldn't get behind. The Stand, I'm a few behind on it, so I'll catch up on it and we can can discuss it, Jeff. I did
You
start
gotta talk him
Moonbase
into
8.
watching it. Yeah, Moonbase 8. Great.
Moonbase 8's hilarious. I just find it hilarious how half-ass everything is.
Right.
Just
I wish
the fact
Travis
that
Kelce had really fallen into a pit in real life.
yeah, the way they were opening doors like airlocks and then waiting for them to close. It just seemed like he was trying so hard and wants to have anything but a real life.
I'm
So
waiting to
that's
see
pretty good.
later on in the series the Elon Musk team has their own moon base, and there's like such a disparity between like an actual team of real funded moon researchers versus these guys. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. It looks like they don't even. You're uncertain whether or not they're actually doing it, or if it's just somebody tricked them into being stuck in the desert. But I'm going to definitely keep watching that. And my staff pick is on Hulu. Today they just started back Freaks and Geeks. Now Freaks and Geeks has been on other things before, but they've actually gone back, remastered it, and put in the original soundtrack with all the original licensed music. So the Who, Sex Pistols, like all this good music that used to play in that series, it'll be back in it instead of the elevator music that they put in to substitute it. And that was a great series. It was such a good,
everybody you see on that show is now somebody that
right. Yeah.
And it had Loudon Wainwright III on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, everybody you see, even people in the background that don't have lines and shit, that have gone on to become famous.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole cast. I mean, that's probably the only thing that I really like that director for. Everything else, I don't really care for him that much. Was Paul Feig?
Oh, Paul Feig.
Feig. Yeah.
This
is the only thing that keeps me going.
Why don't you like Ghostbusters? What's wrong with you?
Everything except Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Jeff and I first saw him on a Paramount comedy. What was it? Paramount comedy with Howie Mandel. He came out. He was a stand-up comic, and it was one of the funniest bits ever. He was completely clean, I think. And he played like a dork with a flat top. That was him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Tool. Tool who? Toolbox. You got to find it if you can. I'm sure it's on YouTube or something.
Yeah, I'll look for it for sure.
Cool. We don't really have an awful lot of time to talk about WandaVision, but let's do it anyway. Let's talk about it. WandaVision, the third episode, couple of more clues and secrets being kind of, I don't know, teased out there. But I thought all in all, it was an amazing episode. Again, they take that 70s, late 60s, early 70s sitcom aesthetic, the colors, the patterns, the look of the furniture, the look of the house. And they really do a very good job of getting it down to detail.
This one was kind of Brady Bunch inspired, at least in the intro.
Oh yeah, Brady. But you see Brady Bunch, Bewitched, on a lot of those shows because their grass is turf,
Right.
And I was asking Dustin before the show started because he's really good at sussing all this stuff out. The clues that have been dropped on WandaVision, kind of tell us what you think, your theory about that. Are they going to tell us who the evil person? Or anyway, just tell everybody what you told me.
Well, I think what's happening is the Sword is using Wanda and her abilities to tap into the multiverse, and
now who is Sword? Quick.
Sword was an entity set up to police what they called sentient weapons. In other parts of the Marvel universe, it was to protect and police mutants.
Okay.
So I think what's going to happen is this is going to, kind of shoehorn in a doorway for the mutants to come in from the Fox universe into the Marvel universe where they belong. But this is a way that they can do that. Now they did show at the end of the episode when they kicked Geraldine out, that it is a sectioned off area. So it is a physical area that they're keeping them in, and there's military there to ensure that no one gets in or out.
There's a giant force field that must be generated by Wanda, right?
Right. I think that's what she's containing. But it also, with the other characters that are in the show, they are very conscious that they're there for a reason and not to let Vision or Wanda know that they're there.
All right.
So, I think that's going to, because Geraldine, I think, came in to wake Wanda up and to bring her, back to remembering who she was, so that she could free everyone. But she said the wrong thing, mentioned her brother, couldn't explain herself. And, it was almost thought that Wanda had a villain look to her, for a minute. Her accent came back. She talked about her brother. And so she started singing that Zakovian nursery rhyme to her children, or the song to her children, which was, out of that character for her and back to her, true self. Right. So I think that's what's happening. SWORD is manipulating them, and there is a gap between Infinity War and Endgame of 5 years, and so I think during that 5-year time is where this is residing. I think this is where they're trying to manipulate her, because she does come back for Endgame, and she is there to fight at the end, Wanda.
Okay. Cool.
So I think that's where it's going to, and in doing so, it's going to combine with the next Doctor Strange in the multiverse. And those two are going to come together and open doorways for a lot of characters to come in and out, and it'll open up the fourth iteration of this Marvel universe.
So where are you finding this stuff? Is this like Nerdist.com?
A lot of watching a lot of YouTubers that specifically, go after Marvel in the Marvel universe, react to a lot of these things. They're putting things together. So it's not, I do follow this stuff, but I follow more to find out what's going on. And so these guys, they've been living this stuff for the last 10 or 12 years. So watching all them, and when I usually have 3 or 4 of those guys say the same things in reaction to some of these things happening, that's usually what's happening. So that's how I'm getting my info.
I saw Nerdist had put out a video about what's going on Wandavision, but I didn't watch it. I don't like having to do homework for shows that I'm watching.
Most people are doing deep dives into Batwoman. No one's even a deep dive into that show. It's a colossal ratings failure, but they will keep it on the air because it's woke. Thank you for that. And if you're not watching WandaVision and you're a fan of Marvel, you need to be watching WandaVision. Dustin or Jeff, what movie should you watch if you want to stay in continuity after Age of Ultron? Because I reviewed that this weekend. Would it be Captain America Winter Soldier?
Yeah, yeah.
No. Would it? Okay.
Yeah, because then you're bringing Bucky back into the situation. So yeah, that would have to be
Bucky Dent. All right. Well, cool, guys. Thank you very much. Again, thank you to our guests from the WKRP-Cast podcast, Allen and Donna Stare. Thank you to all of our Patreon members. To become a Patreon member, just go to patreon.com/Tim Andrews. You can follow us on social media at radio_Labyrinth on Twitter, just Radio Labyrinth on Facebook. And we also have what we call the Radio Shack, which is run by Dustin here. And Jeff designed a new T-shirt. It is up in our store now. You can get it, the official Radio Shack T-shirt. There's also a hoodie and a face mask. And the link will be in the show description, audio and on YouTube. Guys, don't forget, Steph's not here, but she sent this to me. If you're looking to adopt a dog, go to barkvillerescue.org. They pull dogs from high-kill shelters all over Georgia and help them find their perfect forever home. So, yeah, again, that is barkvilledogrescue.com. All right, so until next, what's that?
I think it's .org.
Yeah, .org. Sorry, I said .com. It's barkvillerescue.org. Shut up, Tim. Until later this week, Saturday, your next show will be out. Keep it canon.